Here comes the invisible woman. She's been on the planet for years. You can't make her out, there's never a doubt. The invisible woman is here.
So, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I thought we'd talk about your new record. It seems reasonable. Your first Farewell was just released on the 9th, I believe, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. How did it go? What was it like?
Well, I've been interviewing myself silly.
I'm sure.
I'm very interested in how you propose it to talk about it. It's the first time that I've ever had such a good publicity team.
Right.
They are fantastic. And I'm especially delighted that you've come on board because my partner lives in New Zealand.
That's what I understand. Yes, Irene, right?
She lives down there. Yeah, that's it. Oh, you got it all down. Okay. So,
well, we do our homework.
So far, seeing a lot of different people's takes on the album has been really interesting. I've really wanted to interview the interviewers.
Okay.
And see what you see in it, you know. Yeah.
Well, to me, I'll just briefly say that after listening to the album, even though a lot of the lyrical content is about aging and whatever, I just thought overall the music has a very childlike quality to it.
Oh, lovely. Good.
So I don't know if that was your intention or not. Like, for instance, the song "We Are Here" reminded me of Dr. Seuss and his book "Horton Hears a Who." I don't know if that was your intention or not, but it made me think of it. So
that's fine.
Okay. So that's my basic impression, but I also just think it's wonderful that it exists. So I hope you're going to tell me a bit. I realize you have spoken to a lot of people about it, but we want to hear about why this record is here in the first place.
Okie doke. Well, I like Dr. Seuss, and I like the idea of being childlike because we need more simplicity. We need, sometimes music just gets, because it's possible to pile every possible track onto a piece of music nowadays.
Right.
You can really overload. And we've never overloaded. It's not a family trait.
Right. Yeah. The instrumentation is pretty sparse. Sometimes it's just piano and voice or guitar and voice. There's other things that creep in there, but it's certainly not overloaded.
Well, that's because it's a song. It's
right.
It's not an accompaniment with a song coming along, for to ride shotgun.
Right. So
okay.
So what were the sessions like when you were recording these and you're trying to keep the overdubbing to a minimum?
I've been recording. My son Calum has been recording me, and Neil also, my older son.
Right.
They've been recording me for 20 years on different records.
Yeah.
I did a series called Home Trilogy, and they recorded on it. They played on it. They've been part of the deal since they were teenagers. But now they both have good studios, complete studios, really good studios. So it's more or less business as usual, but with a different take with an album like this. This is a very emotional album.
Right.
And it's one with me as an old woman. For some reason, the last one, which was recorded when I was only 80, that didn't feel like an old woman's album, but this one does. And I'm happy with the way it is, because that's what I am. I'm mature, I'm vintage, I'm elder, I'm ancient, I'm heritage, however you want to call it.
Yep.
And the album is concerned with time and with correlating different elements of existence.
So the people you were working with are your two sons, and
we all are.
Yeah, and Kate St. John, who was a member of the Dream Academy. So how did those sessions work? Did you kind of oversee everything? Was it collaborative? Were you working in a studio, kind of home? How did it happen?
We did a lot of it in Calum's studio. He has a studio in his house, which now that his children are grown and gone, it makes it much easier to record there.
Right.
So all of the songs that I play piano on, I will have been able to play the piano myself completely without anybody.
Right.
That's how they were born. Because when I make a song, generally it develops accompaniment and song at the same time, because I see how it's going to sound. And then if the boys felt something needed to be added, another track would be added by them.
Right.
So that's how it worked. And working with them, I've worked with them since they were teenagers. We know the kind of music that I want. Now, they are skilled songwriters themselves, and they have played with bands that are world famous. So they also have played on the music scene, the ones where you can't understand the words because there's so much instrumentation.
Right. I'm familiar with those. Yes.
And where the music is so loud that I can never go along and listen to one of the concerts.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that they can draw themselves back and be childlike with me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we work beautifully together. You'd have to talk to them to see if they think that's it. But to me, it's wonderful. Kate St. John joined our family about 7 or 8 years ago. So working with her is very different because she is highly classically trained, much more so than me or my 2 sons. And so she brings to the table a whole new way of doing the songs. And I think I've written, either 4 or 5 songs with her. And it's very interesting the way we work together because she's fascinated by the whole way that folk music works. With you take a G7th chord and you don't write down what you want the person to do; they just improvise it. But with her, she wants to write everything down, and her approach to the words is the same. She broaches words that would not be found in folk music, but this isn't folk music. It's songwriting, a new songwriting. So she brings a whole new a new facet to this diamond. She really does. So that's the team.
So it sounds like the way you and Kate approach music is slightly different. Was there any problem finding a common ground, or was that the interesting part of it?
We found a third ground that wasn't strictly either of us.
Right.
And the point is, with me, it has to sing well, and it has to be economical, and it has to no filler words at all, no filler verses. And that was a little difficult for her because her mind is so fertile, and she dreams up this and this and this and this and this, and she was amazingly able to pull back to the very, very basics, all without being directed.
Right.
So, and she had some of the words that she found that she wanted in this, especially the song about the boy who hung himself, were absolutely stunning, just stunning. We work very well together. We do, and we love each other, it's a very functional family. It's just really nice. There's no arguments. There's no throwing of tantrums. There's no cruel criticism. It's just, how do you see this? How do you think this should go? What's the best we can do here?
A functional family it seems to be an unusual thing to find these days. So it's kind of a relief.
Well, the whole idea of a functional family is dysfunctional, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems that way.
If you can put it that way.
Especially with
so the normal is abnormal.
You're in England, and of course the royal family is constantly dysfunctional. So it just kind of it comes from the top, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that all began when the Queen allowed the royal family to be seen on television. Normally, and that was way back in the 60s, I think, or 70s.
Yeah.
And it was much discussed whether she should do that. But the trouble is that made people realize that they're really like any other family. You know,
Right.
it's, they have, but accepting theirs is public, and that's in a lot of ways too bad.
Right. Yeah.
I don't follow the royal family, although I will admit that I was fascinated by Diana because she always looked so good. But you have my previous you have my previous album, don't you? The one Everything Changes.
Yeah.
Well, the song When Fairy Tales End, that's about Diana. Yeah.
When she smiled, we were there as we'd always been. For children will believe in fairy tales and once upon a time. When she went to the ball, we were there to see it all. Then we were with her, we were together with each other. We were never alone.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of watching The Crown at the moment, and they're in the middle of the Diana part, and it's fascinating and very sad at the same time. And frustrating too.
A lot of it is fiction. Remember that.
Yeah.
A lot of it. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time Googling after it, seeing what was real and what isn't.
So to get back to the album.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a nice question. I appreciated that, because this is the first album in which I've played so much piano, and that's chiefly because I have arthritis in both my hands.
Right.
And I can't play the string instruments as well as I could.
Your mother was a classically trained pianist, right?
Oh yes, she was an absolutely wonderful pianist. She died when I was 18, but my most poignant memories of her is her playing classical music at night when she'd finished her mothering in the day or her piano teaching in the day.
Yeah.
She would just sit down and just play the piano pieces that she loved. And I loved that, listening to her, could hear it.
It must be wonderful to grow up in a musical environment like that.
Yes, well, if there's anything that this album shows you, it's that it ties down to, if there's anything that is unique about me, and maybe there are some other musicians who share this category, is that I had an excellent grounding in understanding the very basic sources of folk music.
Right.
I listened to the real people from the time I was 2 until the time I left home. That's the actual singers, not people who had heard the record, who had heard a singer, who had heard. These are the actual people. That was on one side. And on the other side was a really good classical education. Right. Those two. And in terms of class orientation, where the folk music is working class and the classical music is patrons who are in upper classes, you need a lot of music. You need a lot of dosh for classical music, and a big piano and all that. But the stuff in the middle, I don't have much knowledge of. So I have married the simplicity of folk music, the seeming simplicity, and the economic use of words, to my knowledge of classical music. And that's what makes this album probably more classically orientated than previous ones. Right, and the fact that the piano is the instrument I feel most able on. Right.
Because you started recording in the 1950s, and there was kind of a folk, for want of a better word, revival at that point, with people like the Kingston Trio and making kind of pop records that were based around old folk songs. So,
well, I recorded maybe 10 years before the Kingston Trio. I was Pete Seeger's sister.
Yeah.
In the 1950s, and Pete was just beginning to be recognized as the father of the American revival, and then he became the grandfather. Then he became the great grandfather.
That's what happens.
Yeah. So I sang a lot of Pete's songs. I learned banjo from his manual. I picked up guitar from just, I don't know where. If you were folk, you shared. Yeah. So there's nothing that even sound, well, a couple of the songs kind of sound like folk songs. Tree of Love on this album sounds like a folk song.
Uh-huh.
I did not plant the tree of love, seeds of love. And I think How I Long for Peace sounds a bit like a folk song. I think if it weren't for the middle eight, that Invisible Woman would sound like a folk song.
Right.
But the others, no, I don't think so.
But music, other than musically, lyrically, is there something that makes it a folk song to you? Like, for instance, The Invisible Woman, which addresses kind of ageism and misogyny and that kind of thing. Would you call that?
Well, you can't make up a folk song.
Right.
It's an oxymoron. And a folk song becomes, it is born. This is my definition, our definition, myself and you and MacColl. It has been born in a community where that is homogeneous, that if I'm using the word properly, where it is an actual community where people know each other, where they all work at the same jobs, or they're roughly the same class, and they understand that they share hopes, dreams, ambitions, way of life, the way of work. And so the songs come out of that community cohesion. Oh, that was John Joe's song, or that was one that Mabel made up. But that information didn't get transferred with the song. The song came forward without us knowing who made it. I have made up one song, which is rapidly becoming a folk song, and that's the Ballad of Spring Hill. It's about a mining. It's about a disaster at sea in 1959.
In the town of Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, down in the dark of the Cumberland mine, there's blood on the coal and the miners lie in the roads that never saw sun nor sky, roads that never saw sun nor sky.
And there's lots of people who think that's a folk song, and some people think you and MacColl made it up. So it's entering where a lot of people sing it and don't know who wrote it, and that is such a compliment. You and MacColl wrote several songs that are becoming folk songs. His song, The Shoals of Herring, is known in Ireland as The Shores of Erin. Which I think is very funny. So none of these songs are folk songs. These ones, some of them have been written in the folk idiom, like folk songs. And with a bit of luck, they may become folk songs. Nobody knows who made up We Shall Overcome. But there's such attention to How I Long for Peace now that it may go the way of We Shall Overcome. It might do so. So that's... because it's easily signalable by anybody.
Right. Yeah. So,
but they're not folk songs. None of them are folk songs.
Okay. So have you had a chance to share these songs in a live audience? Are you performing much?
Oh gosh, yes. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. How I Long for Peace is 20 years old.
Right.
Tree of Love is 10 years old. The Puzzle is 5 years old. Gotta Get Home by Midnight is about 5 years old, and I've ended concerts with it for a lot of those 5 years.
Right.
And the fact that people remember them and people remember lines from them is very nice. It's very nice.
And I think, do you have a show coming up in May?
It's 2 back-to-back concerts in London, socially distanced. I don't know what that's going to be like.
Right. I was wondering.
I've never given a socially distant.
Yeah. I mean, I am also in the age group where supposedly, we're kind of endangered species these days with the COVID and all that. So you have to be careful, I understand. Hopefully you're taking precautions.
Well, I'm probably okay. I've had 2 jabs, and
Oh, good.
I'll probably have to be jabbed again before that. But I won't be able to get close to any members of the audience, which really grieves me. You know, there's not going to be a line of signing and talking and any of that. I will have to, you know, whisk away like the pop singers do, you know, and that's a shame. That's a shame. Yeah. So, but the 2 concerts are back to back. Yeah, that'll be very strange because the last concert I gave, I think, was November of 2019. Yeah.
Okay. And are you playing alone, or are you playing with other musicians?
Oh no, I only play now with one of my sons.
Oh,
I don't do solo concerts anymore.
okay.
No, I'm too old for that.
Okay.
But I can do it. I just don't want to. I love playing with the boys.
Right. Well, there you go. And my understanding is there's also a documentary in production about yourself.
It's being made.
Yeah. And
It is actually being made as I speak. The people are working on it. It's being made by a guy who, as a teenager, used to rob our, not rob, but he used to troll our fridge for food.
Okay.
He was a friend of one of the boys, and we've known him since he was a teenager.
And so how much input do you have in the making of the film?
Well, it's not at that stage yet. They've still put it together, and they're still photographing. But I think the album will play a big part in it.
Oh, good.
At least I hope it will.
Right.
Because it may be my last album, and I've been making albums since I was 19.
Yeah.
Feels odd. Feels very odd. Yeah.
Is it satisfying to look back on what you've done, or is it satisfying to look back and see what you've done over the past 60, 70 years or so, or is it? Are you just looking ahead?
Yes. Oh, I've had an extraordinary life. So next question.
Next question. Okay.
Next question. What do you have?
You have a track called "All in the Mind." It seems like a duet. Who are you singing with? What can you tell me about that?
Is there a place where everything goes? Everyone's looking and nobody knows. Is there a way, a map or a sign? Or is it just dreaming, all in the mind?
With my son, Calum.
Yeah.
He's my second son, Calum. He's 58 years old.
How old?
And the song was made, he's 58.
Okay.
And it's a song we made up together. And it's a dream to sing. It really is wonderful to sing. You can just let it happen, almost like a lullaby. It just happens. Yeah.
And the instrument that's playing along with you, is it? It sounds like something like a clavinet or something. Is that what it is?
I'm trying to remember. It's in the notes. I think it has a funny name.
Okay.
Calum puts things on once I've put down the basic track and the vocal.
Right.
He just puts on what he wants.
Very good.
Says, how do you like this?
Cool. And that's followed. It's followed by "We Are Here," which is the one that reminded me of Dr. Seuss. But that's also kind of a duet in a way. There's a male
and
voice.
that's me and Calum. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Neil doesn't sing on this album. He doesn't sing on.
But we don't talk anymore, or just walk anymore. Look at me, be with me. I am here, you are here, we are here, we are here.
But what can you tell me about the song itself? "We Are Here."
Well, we were just chatting. We didn't bring this up as a subject. And I was just chatting because I had stopped at the had a meal recently. I've forgotten the terms of exactly where or how. And I was telling him about a couple who were obviously a couple. And they were both looking at their phones. They were sitting and eating their meal and looking at their phones.
Right, right.
And I thought, what is this? Is this not an occasion? You're sitting down and you're enjoying food together, which is iconic in terms of human experience, eating food together.
Yep.
And you're looking at your phones and pointing out things on your phones and laughing. And so it's a whole new form of communication that I just don't understand. To me, you turn your phone off when there's other people around. You just turn it off. And so Calum and I started figuring out how this should go. And it just grew out like a mushroom. It was quite wonderful. Once the idea gets going with me and any of the three that I write with, it's delightful. It's like watching a child grow up immediately. And you suggest this and you suggest that, and we are at the point, all three of us, all four of us, where we can say, well, I don't think that fits in, but I'll put it in the perhaps save column. And all of the suggestions go into the phone, which I record them.
Oh, great.
And transcribe them so that you have evolutionary history. And if we're lucky, the song is made very, very quickly, you know. All in the Mind was made so quickly. It just sprang out. So once you get on that vibe with the person you're working with, and the three of them are very different to work with, extremely different. You know, Neil is very slow and very thoughtful about things. And he'll say, well, what about, yeah, I think. And Calum will pick up the guitar and start going, and that will lead to a tune, and that the tune leads to doing the words. Kate is more cautious because she's still very conscious that she doesn't know folk music.
Right.
And I'm very wary that she has contributions in classical music that I don't even dream of.
Right.
So that when you come to what she does on One of Those Beautiful Boys, is stunning. It's wonderful. So each song is different. So I don't remember about We Are Here.
Okay.
It was originally called 140 Ways, about the characters, number of characters you could use on a Twitter.
Okay.
But we changed the title because we thought that that's probably what people would refer to it as instead of 140 Ways, and it became 280 Ways anyway shortly after.
Immediately outdated.
Yeah,
it's the way it is these days. So one aspect of folk music, especially a lot of the folk music that was made by you and other family members, is social consciousness. And there's a lot going on in the States right now with everything. And so it's nice to be able to talk to someone who has perspective about this, who's, if I can say, been around a while and seen a lot of things. And I just watched a film last night, film biography of Billie Holiday, which addressed a lot of that stuff as well, happening in the 40s and 50s. So I'm wondering, do you see a chance of things changing? Do you see, is this something new, or is this the same old thing just repeating itself?
Oh, it's not the same old thing repeating itself.
Okay.
It's a whole new, and there's another man been killed, hasn't there, by the police?
Yeah.
What is his name? I should know it.
Well, there's George Floyd was the one that's on trial, and then there's another one that just happened.
I'll start remembering his name. We have to remember the names, and the response now. There always comes a time just before revolution when you realize it's not just a tipping point; it's a boiling point.
Right.
And God knows how Black and brown people in America have been so patient. I don't understand how they have been, because when I was growing up, it was only black or brown women who came to work in your house. White people didn't do jobs. They didn't come and do your ironing and your cleaning and sweeping your floors. And it was black people. If somebody came to do the garden, it was a black man. And they were so kind, and they loved us as little white children. They cuddled us, and I don't know if you've read my memoir, but I wrote a book called First Time Ever. And I give a chapter to the three black women that I remember. And they were always in the same way that the working class white, when my mother-in-law turned 14, she was sent off to the Reverend Goodall's house to be a skivvy, skivvy. And she was 14, and she had to call the 5-year-old minister, the minister's son, who was 5-year-old. She had to call him Master John. And if Master John, who was 5 years old, said, "Betsy, go do this," she had to do it.
Yeah.
And this has been the position of people of color in America. I don't know why there has not been full-scale revolution and murder. I really don't. The treatment has been so appalling. And it's only because the largest organ in our body is a different color.
Right.
Just a different color.
Yep.
A different color. And white women lying in the sun so they can get dark, and then and dark people bleaching their skin so they can get white. There's something that is comical and tragic, so tragic about it. But the fact that it can lead to the death of people and the beatings and the way the police behave and soldiers behave, but then that's part of patriarchy. That's part of the male dynamic, is to gather together and beat some other males up. That's what it is.
That's true. Yeah.
And until we interpret in those terms, we won't understand it. No.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate it.
Well, I don't know. It's a good thing to share.
It needs to be talked about.
But it exists with the power structures of women who are in the same kitchen, but not to the point of murder and torture and taking assault rifles into nursery schools. And it exists in the class society, talking about, the way that, and in England, there is definitely a much more feeling of class. Right. With our Eton and with the fancy colleges that the working class, the upper classes go to. Yeah. Yeah. So how did we get onto that?
I think I asked you a question. I'm sorry.
I forgot what it was.
But no, you answered it very eloquently. Thank you.
Irene tells me that I should really write the questions down when somebody asks them. She doesn't stick to them.
So have you spoken to her today, or are you going to do that after you talk to me?
I'm going to do that. Well, I call her when I'm in bed, and I call her in the morning when I have my tea in my hand.
Very good. Yeah. Well, there's nothing like a good cup of tea. That my English upbringing is.
Oh, God, yes. I know.
That's fantastic. All righty. Well, I will let you go then. Thank you very much for talking to me. It's been a real pleasure.
Well,
thank you.
Remember the praise for your prime minister.
I'll tell next time I see her. I mean, the great thing is she's so accessible. Everyone knows her. She's been up here in my apartment before. Yeah. So it's very good. Well, yeah. And hopefully this is only the first farewell. There will be others as well.
Thank you very, very much, Marty. Thank you. Good night. Good morning.
Bye.
Night.